Welcome to the Brave Little Podcast. Throwing out another episode here because, Aaron, we're just seeing too many dang good movies.
Man, we are on a roll right now. I've watched probably 20 movies in the last 3 weeks.
No, 2017 was supposed to be a bad year for movies.
Don't believe that hype. 2017 was a very strong year for movies.
I guess it got off to a slow start, but boy, has it finished strong.
Incredibly strong. The summer was a little weak, to be honest, but
no doubt. The first 7 or 8 months of this year have struggled.
Well, I mean, that was the Trump effect, is what that was.
That's what it was.
But then to finish off the year, I mean, we got a slew of good movies.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Hollywood stopped tweeting about Trump and got back to making movies. No, it's been wild because our next episode we're doing our top 10 list, which is my favorite episode to do each year. It's super exciting. I always love hearing what's on your list and what's on Skylar's list and your reasons. And it's just exciting to see and hear what films impacted you guys and the reasons why. But what's nuts here is I put this list together, right? And I think I have my solidified top 10, right? I'm like, oh, and it's super hard because my top 10 is like 15 movies, right? And I get it down to 10, and there's probably 5 other films that any other day could swap out with the 8, 9, 10 on my list. It's, there's just so much good stuff. And then you tell me to watch a film like Good Time or The Florida Project. I finally get around to watching that. And then everything's in disarray again because it's like, well, where does this go on the list? Because it has to be somewhere, and I'm still trying to put that list together. I don't even know. I'm just gonna blow the whole thing up and then just be as honest with myself as possible. Because I think sometimes I get a little too cute with my lists,
Well, that's what I did. I had to start from scratch because my initial cut was 27 titles long. Wow. There were 27 movies that came out in 2017 that I considered for my top 10 list. That's how much I enjoyed them.
27.
Yeah, that's how much I enjoyed them. I mean, we're talking about, okay, not all the 27 are great movies, but entertaining. These are 27 entertaining movies. I cannot remember a year off the top of my head that had as many entertaining movies as 2017 did. So it's been a great year for cinema.
Oh, no doubt about it. I can't wait to record our top 10 podcast, and I honestly don't even know. I think there's like 3 or 4 films I'm certain they're going to be my top 10, and then the rest, I don't know.
Wild cards.
I don't know.
Wild cards all around.
And so that's the thing is this often happens here at the end of the year is we get this deluge of films that get released on Christmas Day or the end of the year, so they're awards eligible for the Academy, the Academy Awards that come in February, March, or whatever. And so you get a whole bunch, and we don't often have enough time to do episodes on films that otherwise would be totally worthy of a full deep dive episode. And so they get relegated to us mentioning them in our top 10, and we talk about it for a few minutes, but then that's it. And so this episode here is an opportunity for us to give at least 3 films some love outside. And these films will likely come up on some of our top 10 lists, maybe not. But regardless, they deserve their own episode. And those films are The Work, which is a documentary. It is Good Time, which is this kind of gritty New York crime film starring Robert Pattinson, a film that you turned me on to, and I'm so glad you did, and we're going to talk about that. And then lastly is The Florida Project, which is no surprise. Anyone that's been following kind of the awards season, it's been getting a lot of awards love. And it's, I think it's 98 or something like that % on Rotten Tomatoes. And so it was a film I knew I needed to see before I set my list of 10, almost as like a chore, okay, I have to see this just to make sure I know it's not on my 10, and then of course I see it and I'm completely moved by it. And so those are the 3 films we're going to talk about now. And so you got me to watch The Good Time. I in turn had I guess first I had asked you to watch The Work.
Right. You sold me on The Work. Yeah, you definitely did. And I'm grateful that you did. So
yeah. Well, it's a 99-cent rental. I should just get that out of the way right now. On iTunes, it's 99 cents to rent it, which is absolutely worth it. I hadn't even heard of this film.
Me neither.
Until I started reading like the year-end critic review lists, and I'd seen it pop up a couple of places, especially when I had searched for documentaries. We had talked about City of Ghosts on a previous episode, which was just a terrific 2017 documentary. And I saw the Work being mentioned, and it's not a great title for a film. It doesn't tell you anything. It's also just seems kind of boring. It makes sense once you've seen the film, but it's a tough sell. And honestly, even describing what the movie's about is a tough sell. But I just think it is an incredible documentary, and I think it was TheRinger.com, Bill Simmons' kind of sports and pop culture site. It was one of their film critics that had it as one of his favorite films of the year. Is what finally got me to pull the trigger. But this is a documentary that takes place in Folsom Prison, which actually is I live in the city of Folsom. The prison itself is literally I pulled it up on Google Maps just before recording. It's 2.7 miles from my house. So I'm actually fairly close to the prison. But the work is about this therapy program that this outside kind of nonprofit group does with inmates each year. It's like a 4-day program, I believe. They do every year at Folsom. I say every year. It might be more than that. I might be getting some of my information misunderstood there. But essentially, civilians are invited to participate in this program where they work with inmates in this kind of, I don't want to say experimental therapy because that makes it sound like it's not legit.
I would say it's more non-traditional.
Non-traditional. Yeah. That's the right term. It's a non-traditional therapy that is both there for the inmates to kind of work through kind of some of their own issues, in addition to the civilians working through their issues, in which inmates, especially veterans of the program, will help the civilians in this therapy work through their issues. Now, if you're telling me a prison documentary about therapy, I'm probably not going to be interested. Now, of course, it's in my hometown that I was raised at. I should be interested. But man, I start watching this movie, and I will say, in the first 5 minutes, I'm asking myself, "What am I watching?"
Oh yeah.
And then there's this moment that hits where I'm like, "Oh, this is unlike anything I've ever seen."
It's special. It's definitely special.
Special.
Yeah.
It's when a documentary can transform, when it can be like a not transformative, but when it can transport you, I should say, to a scenario or a place that you'd otherwise never experience. That's when a documentary is most effective. And that's exactly what this did for me. What did you think?
So like you, I started this movie with reservations. I mean, the first 5 or 10 minutes is pretty slow. I mean, you're just getting the nuts and bolts of how the program works, and you're getting introduced to the program. It's basically run by the inmates. There, like you said, there's a nonprofit group that kind of oversees the whole situation, but the people that are doing the talking are the inmates. These are the people that have lived through the program. They've experienced it multiple times. And a lot of them are lifers in Folsom Prison, which is one of the most violent prisons in the state of California. Yeah. I mean, this is real prison. There's no white collar criminals here, I don't think. This is all. These are violent drug offenders. These are people that have really, really horrible pasts, and you get introduced to the past of these people that are taking part of the program. So you get to understand what they've been through, and you get to hear firsthand how the program has helped them. And you're also introduced to the 3 people that we're following in this particular version of the program. So we get introduced to 3 people. One is a young kid who's, I think he's 25 years old. Basically he's there because he feels like his life is aimless and he doesn't know what to do next. He says he has a really suburban upbringing with not a lot of turmoil, and not someone you would think is a candidate for this type of program, but his journey is very interesting, and we'll get into that later. Another guy is he's a black male in I think he said his late 40s, early 50s. He said the reason he's there is because he has father issues. His father was in prison, and when he was born, so he never got to meet him. And one of the reasons that he went into this program was he wanted to meet other people that were that either had kids or their fathers were also missing and part of the prison system. So that's his reason for being there. And I think the third guy is just someone who has rage issues. He had father issues as well. I think that's like the main theme of this movie, this documentary.
Yeah, it really
is that everyone involved had father issues at some point or another.
Sounds cliche. But
it's obvious. And even one of the inmates, he talks about how the reason he's doing this is to help people that have that were missing their father, or they had father issues of their own. So that's a common recurring thing that we see. And with these three regular people, these regular citizens that go into the program, they're all pretty skeptical, I think, right off the bat. And it's only a 4-day program, so I guess you figure like what can happen over those 4 days. Mm-hmm. And we come to find out that a lot can happen over those 4 days. Man. It's pretty amazing. So like you said, it's a little slow in the beginning, but once they get into the therapy sessions, it picks up pretty rapidly.
No, it does. And it starts with an inmate.
Yeah.
Is his first time, right? So you have inmates where it's their first time in the program. Then you have veteran inmates who've gone through the program and are there to help other inmates or the civilians themselves. Because all the civilians, for the most part are, they're all first timers. The fascinating thing here is I was reading that the director, they picked 3 civilians. They had no idea what they were going to get when they were shooting, because in the program throughout, there's a lot more people that are in there doing it. In fact, you can hear in some scenes like what's going on in other circles, but it's never the focus. They honestly picked 3 and hoped that they would get something compelling. And that's the amazing thing too, is not only is it compelling, it makes you wonder like, wow, like you picked these 3 guys, this is the story we got. Like what are the other stories? What else is going on? But the first big moment is an inmate named Kiki. And this is the thing, this is what's so fascinating, is that in order to participate in the program, I'm assuming, these inmates probably had to have been on good behavior and they earned the right to be able to do it. But you have to check at the door any prison gang affiliation. Like the whole thing is you need to come in with absolutely no judgment. You don't come in with male bravado or anything like that. You have to come in, and you've got guys there that are part of like the Aryan race, like neo-Nazis. You got guys that were in the Crips. You've got, you have a far range, a pretty crazy range of people. You have a Native American.
Yeah, I think they're basically all gang affiliated.
They're all gang affiliated.
So yeah,
but they put that aside.
Yep, definitely.
And effectively so, right? And I think they know that, like, even if they didn't, they would be kicked right out. But like effectively so. So you have this inmate named Kiki who has the first experience. And when it's pretty intense to watch, because you're wondering, you're seeing this person having this physical reaction to this kind of emotional therapy, trying to kind of scourge the demons of their past, if you will. And the way that the inmates help him do that, you're watching going like, what is going on? And then when it gets to the civilians, like, that the next day and beyond, it gets even better. But it was something that, to me, that I was so transfixed. Watching this world that I'm so unfamiliar with, but also just having all these conflicting feelings about like rehabilitation and, like, man, some of these guys, they're done. Like, you can tell that this program's probably helped a lot of them, but like they're never leaving here, and rightfully so. Some of them have committed heinous crimes, but other ones you just think, oh, what if they could have had this type of therapy or rehabilitation pre-crime, right? Like that's the devastating nature of it. But you really meet an interesting cast of characters in this prison.
It's fascinating because I don't think that this prison is particularly interesting. It is a particularly interesting collection of individuals. I think that just people in general, if you allow them to speak their mind, and if they're comfortable enough to speak about their past, I think they're all interesting, especially if you're in prison. So I think we just got a taste of these really, really interesting individuals, but it could happen at any prison, really. Or,
Yeah, no doubt. It's about how do you effectively, especially with guys in prison, how do you effectively create an environment where they're comfortable letting that guard down?
Right.
That's what I doubted going in, wondering like, okay, how is this? And boy, do they let their guards down.
They do. I mean, everyone that we see that that goes through the process and submits themselves, I mean, they're raw. They're basically, their emotions are naked, and they're fully exposed. And you can talk about how non-traditional the treatments are, but it seems effective to me. I mean,
yeah,
you see these
flash
people.
A statistic at the end, and this isn't a spoiler, but of all the people that have gone through the program and whatever that criteria is to have gone through the program, of the inmates that weren't in there for life or whatever, they've had, I believe it was 50 people that have gone through the program and have been, released from prison. And of those 50, 0 have returned. Considering that usually like the retention or the rate of returning back to prison is like 65.
Yeah. It's very, very high.
Yeah. And
So,
so,
and it makes you almost wish that some of these guys that are lifers, if they could maybe get another chance. I mean,
I know.
obviously, like they like you said, they committed some very heinous
Yeah,
crimes,
yeah, you have
and
to consider the victims and
you
families and
definitely
whatnot.
do. But man, this is a movie that gives you hope, and I think that's what I
It does.
liked about it so much. Is you imagine a jail as a hopeless place, obviously, right? But
Mhm.
seeing this movie, I think there's hope there for
Yeah.
everybody. So really,
Well,
really cool
some of them,
watch.
there's a couple guys in particular that just go on a couple monologues that were really inspiring.
Yes.
And you're listening to them, and yeah, it's a pretty remarkable thing. I think maybe why it resonated so much for me is that we live in this polarizing age of like, especially in Trumpism, like you've got such extremes of people. From the people marching with tiki torches to
Hmm.
to even the other end of it. Not saying that I'm not about to equate the tiki torches with the Antifa movement, but like I think there's so much hatred in the world and so much mudslinging and so much just seeing something where you're like, okay, there's this neo-Nazi guy and this guy from the Crips that are holding hand arm in arm helping a civilian work through some stuff when they
Right.
really don't have any reason to do this. But it give me this weird sense of hope for like, I don't want to sound hokey, but almost kind of this human spirit. Like, oh,
No,
like, wow, okay, if this can happen, then like we're gonna be okay. Like if only people could come together for stuff like this, like in the pursuit of helping other people. Like it was just a beautiful thing.
it really is. It's like I said, it's one of the most inspiring movies I've ever, or documentaries I've ever seen, and it's just like what I found really fascinating was that these people came together, and it wasn't under the pretense of even a religious movement. It was like beyond that. It was just like a human movement,
Oh yeah.
which is really interesting. I don't even know how the program got started. I'd love to learn more
I,
about
I
it.
don't
So,
either. I don't know even know what it's based in. They do this. This guy comes out and does this chant at the beginning, and I'm
oh
not
yeah, the
familiar at all.
chant is. I
Yeah,
almost was out during the chant.
yeah. Well,
So
that's the hump you got to get over because
yeah,
that was for me. I was like, what is this? And then once you get past that, then you're like, okay,
yeah,
you're in.
yeah. Very cool. Very good
So
movie. I'm
yeah.
glad you recommended it.
Well, I'm glad you saw it. And
Yeah.
for those listening, it's 99 cents to rent on iTunes. So there's really no reason to watch it. It's terrific.
And it's called The
Yeah,
Work,
The Work,
2017.
The
Yeah.
Work about Folsom State Prison.
Yeah.
All right. This second movie was the one that you recommended to me, Good Time. I want to know what possessed you to track down this Robert Pattinson film, and why did you have any thought in your mind that this might be good?
So Good Time is a movie that I heard about a long time ago. Actually, it started making like the festival circuit, and I heard buzz about it. And I just love the setting basically. So for anyone that doesn't know, Good Time is a movie that's set in Queens. It follows these two brothers. One's played by Robert Pattinson, and the other's played by one of the co-directors. And the co-director plays a kind of a slow brother, I guess. He has some sort of mental affliction, and Robert Pattinson's character is just like always looking to be a savior, basically. So the movie starts out in a therapy session between, I think his name is Nick, the slow brother is Nick.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
and so he's in therapy, and the therapist is trying to make a breakthrough with this guy, trying to make a connection, but he's obviously not interested. And in bursts through the door his brother, played by Robert Pattinson, and he just pulls him out. He yanks him out of there because he doesn't think it's helping. So he's going to rescue his brother. Now, what he's rescuing him to is a bank heist. So yeah, he breaks him free from the therapy so that they can go rob a bank. And that's kind of the essence of these brothers. They're low level crooks, drug users, drug dealers. They're involved with all the underbelly, the seedy underbelly of New York, based out of Queens. So that's really what sold me on the movie was just the seediness of it. I heard it was like a Mean Streets, which is one of my favorite movies, directed by Scorsese. Yeah, it's one of my favorite Scorsese's. So people were comparing it to that, and I saw the trailer for it, and I loved it. First of all, the movie's shot on film. Like there aren't many movies shot on film anymore, and this movie is perfectly. It's a perfect story for a movie that's shot grittily on film. So yeah, it's about two brothers that they rob a bank, and they get caught because they're losers, and the whole rest of the movie is Robert Pattinson's character trying to bust his brother out of lockup, essentially. So
I really knew very little about this movie when I watched it, and dude, this thing was a thrill ride.
Yeah.
And it is a non-conventional story in the sense that, like, it's told linearly. I mean, it's told, it's like it doesn't do anything crazy experimental in terms of, like, it's not like some sort of artsy fartsy movie, although it is shot on film. It does have this gritty kind of synth 80s design and feel to it. And it is shot so up close that it is alarmingly claustrophobic.
Yeah. It's claustrophobic is the perfect description for it. The tight shots,
but it needs it. There's this whole time, like, I'm watching it and I'm like almost suffocating because of what's happening, because of the way it's filmed, but in a good way. It was a thrill ride. I felt like I don't want to say I felt like I was following someone that was wandering aimlessly necessarily, but it really was this journey of this character, Robert Pattinson, from, robbing this bank with his brother to the rest of the evening, like one event after another after another. And it's talk about subverting expectations of what I think would happen next. Like, I've seen a lot of heist movies. You see a lot of these things and you think, like, okay, well, this is what's happening. And then all of a sudden, no, there's so many curveballs. You're like, oh, whoa, I guess it's going in this direction.
Yeah.
But it works for the story and for what it's working towards. I think the ending is a little controversial. But I actually do think the ending fits the theme of the movie and what was going on. I'm not sure about the very last shot of. I have questions about that. I don't want to go into spoilers. But this film, I don't want to pretend like I have like all this New York experience. I lived there for 4 months.
You did live there though.
Manhattan.
You spent time in Queens.
I've spent time in Queens,
yeah,
but enough time to know that this was a film made by people from New York, which the Safdie brothers are from New York. I mean, Robert Pattinson turns out a performance that I didn't think he was capable of.
Boy, man,
I was stunned.
He is so good in this movie. I mean, the movie itself is, like you said, it's very tense. It's anxiety inducing. The cuts are super quick. There's so many close-ups, and just the way the camera is positioned is just really, really stressful, which is great. I think it's perfect for the attitude of the movie. Like you said, it takes place over about a 24-hour period, and everything happens to this guy, to these brothers, basically. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and that's what's fun. That's what's fun about it, right? So you're taking this journey with them, with a million obstacles. And the only reason that they're doing it is because they love each other, basically. So that's why he's trying to get his brother out of jail, because he loves him. He wants to take care of him. So that's the brotherly relationship that's on display in this movie. But Pattinson is just, I mean, he hits a home run with this one.
Yeah, dynamite.
His American accent is flawless. I mean, it's very New York.
It's hard to get the Queen's accent because it quickly becomes Boston. People can't do a New York accent because the Boston one is just more pronounced, and I think especially someone like Pattinson, who's from England, right? It's hard to get the difference between the two. But I don't know if he just had a dialect coach or if he just worked super hard at it, or if the Safdie brothers were all over him. But he nails it. He just really nails the Queen's accent.
He's great, yeah. And you don't even recognize him. Like, that's the thing. He has this. No, he has a bad goatee, scruffy haircut. He does not look like a movie star.
Bleaches his hair in one part.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's great. It's great. So yeah,
I mean, you've also got a little bit with part with Jennifer Jason Leigh, who is terrific in a little bit. You got Barkhad Abdi, from Captain Phillips. I'm the captain now, in a great part. I mean, just a terrific cast.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot.
It's at the beginning. Yeah. Oh, it's incredibly shot. I think the biggest, I think the way I could sell this movie to people isn't just a New York heist film, but I think what you're going to get is a unique film experience unlike anything you've seen before. It's not gonna be like maybe your very, very favorite film of the year. It's certainly not going to be the feel-good film of the year, but you're going to watch something. You're going to go on a ride that you're like, wow, I've never done that in a movie before. I've never felt quite like this before, or seen a story told this way. And that's saying a lot. Oh, yeah. A lot of movies have been made, but I just felt like this one had such a distinctive, unique way of telling the story, that it just felt unlike, just really unlike anything I'd seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. And, the first time I saw it, I didn't love it. I thought it was really good. And I knew you guys should definitely watch it. But I watched it again just last night or the night before. And
well, because you told me I should see it.
Yeah.
And then I saw it and I was like, dude, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
It's shocking. The movie is jarring. And that's what I loved about it. And upon
Well,
second viewing, it's great.
Like if I could, it grabs you by the lapels. It's like the equivalent of someone grabbing you by the lapels and not letting go, and then just throwing you back out at the end of the film.
Right.
You're just like, what did I just do?
Right, and so that's the thing. Like you feel like Robert Pattinson grabbed you by the hand and he's dragging you along for the next 24 hours.
That's exactly right. Yeah. These Safdie brothers, I'm excited to see. I hope they can do more, than just like New York gritty crime films, but like the physical sensation of the experience of watching this movie was such that I really want to see their talents utilized and broadened. I'm really excited to see what they do next.
Yeah, and it actually makes me excited for what Robert Pattinson does next. I've never been a fan of his, but man, I'm a huge fan now. So,
well, yeah. I mean, people like Pattinson. I mean, even like Gosling, people who maybe even some extent Matthew McConaughey, who kind of get pigeonholed or even start at in these kind of romance or rom-com type of roles. They have to work to get respect. And honestly, Pattinson in my mind I never even considered. I just never thought he would ever break out of kind of what he was stuck in. But man, this is an indication this guy's he's got a lot to offer.
Very cool. And I will say good use of a pit bull in the movie towards the end.
Oh, yes. Yes, very good use of a pit bull.
So yeah, go watch Good Time. It's available streaming.
Good Time. Gritty.
I think it's like $4.99 on iTunes. Totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, The Florida Project. This was a film directed by Sean Baker.
Testing. You still there? Hello.
I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. Should I close out of the Be Live?
Yeah, let's close out of that.
That's cool. No biggie. All right. And we're back.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to start back at the
intro to Florida Project. Yeah, that's cool.
What did I say? I'm trying to remember what I said.
Just start from the top.
All right.
You didn't even say anything. You said it was about Sean Baker.
What's that?
You just said this is a movie directed by Sean Baker.
Yes. Did you? Okay. And the third film, The Florida Project. This is a film directed by Sean Baker, who did Tangerine. I didn't see the film, but it received notoriety last year for being filmed entirely on an iPhone. And that's really all I know about him. But The Florida Project's been getting like a ton of praise. It's starring Willem Dafoe, as well as a handful of newcomers, which are really the main subjects. Willem Dafoe here is definitely in a supporting capacity. And then a turn by our Donal nominee, Caleb Landry Jones, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But when did The Florida Project come on your radar? What interested you in seeing this?
So I heard the praise of this movie probably about a month ago. And once I started to hear about the praise, I started to look around for it to watch the thing. and no one was playing it, so
Yeah.
I just kind of had to wait it out, and eventually it became available online through nefarious means. But I watched the movie, and it was incredible. It's an incredible journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You started watching it and you wrote, "Wow, this movie is." I think you said "bleak AF" was your text, and then you wrote like, which means I think you wrote something, which means it must be true to real life or something to that effect. And so your comment there, that text was enough, for me to want to watch it. I mean, I was interested in seeing it anyway. But this is a movie that takes place in kind of like, I don't know if the underbelly is the right word, but it's kind of in the shadows of Disney's resort Magic Kingdom in Orlando, where there's kind of a string of kind of these pretty low rent hotels or motels, excuse me, that you have a lot of people that are trying to have extended occupancies there that are otherwise homeless. And you follow the main character is really told through the eyes of this little girl. How old is she? 6?
She's got to be, yeah, she's 6. Mooney.
Her name is Mooney. The actress, incredible job. I saw her on Kimmel, but like just remarkable work by her, as well as her mom, who I'd written down her name. I don't know how to say it. I think she's originally Lithuanian. Do you know how to say it?
Bria no.
Vonea? Yeah. Both. So these are the main characters.
Vinate? I don't know.
And you've got this mom who's in her early 20s, who's essentially trying to provide for her mother or for her daughter, who also, I mean, I'm going to pass my own judgment here, is fairly irresponsible as a mother, at least in the way she supervises her daughter. Yeah. But the movie does a good job at showing, kind of setting up this world where there's this motel. These kids are running around. They're kind of getting into trouble. It's interesting because the story is told through the eyes of this little girl who's so full of life. It's like summertime. Every day is a new adventure. It's a new thing. She doesn't really realize that she's poor and kind of destitute in the way that an adult would read the situation. And it's interesting because you're watching a story through her eyes. You're also watching Willem Dafoe, who's the manager of it. He doesn't own the motel, but he's the manager who's trying to be, draw a hard line, but also be benevolent, and watch his character try to actually kind of balance those two things, as well as a mom who's trying to desperately provide for her daughter, who's just in a scenario that's like impossible. Now, this sounds bleak, and in some ways it is, but it's one of those films that's cast in a way and portrayed in a way that has this level of authenticity and vibrancy that just, I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen. The performances in this movie were maybe some of the best in any movie I've seen this year. What for you is the standout quality watching the Photo Project?
Like you said, this is a world that I'm not familiar with, but even dipping a toe in is.
I am. I stayed at the Travel Lodge for Star Wars Celebration, literally in that same neighborhood of hotel.
Well, yeah, you were saying that you noticed some of the landmarks from this.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I recognize a lot of it. Yeah.
And which is actually one of the scenes in the movie is when these out of towners accidentally book a room in this hotel.
Magic Castle.
Oh gosh. So yeah, this movie we get introduced to these people that are, I mean, you could say they're down on their luck, but this is just their reality. They're homeless, and the only way that they can survive is living in these long-term motels. And it's not just one or two people. It's basically every occupant in that motel is in the same situation where they're just scraping by. They're barely making it to the next day. And it's a struggle. This is the modern struggle of 2017. This is not something new. Unfortunately, it's still the reality for a lot of people, especially in Florida. And which is really interesting because you have the backdrop of the Magic Kingdom, right? So this is like the happiest place on earth. Yeah. And on the other hand, you have the bleakest place on earth, basically, where these kids are they're running up and down the hallways, and they're begging for change. They're selling cologne to make ends meet. They're waiting at the back of restaurants for old food to eat. I mean, these are people that are forgotten by the economy. Now, maybe they're not the most responsible. Maybe they didn't make the best choices, but that doesn't mean that they should have to live like this, in these terrible circumstances. But that's not really a judgment that you make in this movie. It's more of just shining a light on their situation. Now, that's what I came to understand by watching it, but that's just me, So, but yeah, like you said, the things that stand out about this are the performances. The kids, all of the kids are great. All the little kids. The first half of this movie is basically seen through the child's eyes. Mm-hmm. The second half of the movie is basically you're getting more of the mother's experience.
Right.
But that doesn't work unless you have an incredibly strong cast of kids, and that's what we have in this movie. You referenced the Mooney character, Brooklyn Prince is her name. She has other friends who are maybe not as strong as she is, but they're great.
No, they're really good.
They're really, really good. They're fun to root for, and they're little hellions, but I mean they're kids.
Yeah.
They're just making the best of their situation, whether that's watching, peering through people's windows, or trespassing, or spitting on cars, harassing tourists. I mean, that's what they do.
Well, that's you talk about them living in the shadow of like the happiest place on earth, and look at them. They're not obviously like in one of the worst spots. But it's also fascinating is this is one of the entertainment capitals of the United States, in Orlando, right? I mean, you have not just Disney, but you've got Orlando and SeaWorld and all these things. But yet throughout this film, you see the way these people entertain themselves and what they get excited for. It's actually interesting, that juxtaposition, because whether it's a fight in the parking lot and a car is hitting people, or the condos go on fire and everyone comes running out super excited, being like, "Oh, there's condos on fire! Like, let's go! Come on, everybody, let's go!" Yeah. This is their attraction, right? Is that just this accidental chaos?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's the reality. So they're making the best of it, and it's pretty. It's an incredibly interesting story. Like, there's not really much plot to this. It's more the fact of you're experiencing their day-to-day lives. You brought up Willem Dafoe, and he makes a valiant effort as the motel manager to walk the line between professionalism and having a heart. Obviously, like, of all the characters that are in this movie, he's probably the one good person, top to bottom. Even when he has to make hard choices, you can tell it's agonizing. And it's a huge credit to Willem Dafoe. I mean, he's such a great actor that you can see the pain underneath the decision that he's making. He doesn't want to kick anybody out. Like, he wants these people to keep living their lives. Like they
right.
But he's also running a business, so he's getting pulled in multiple directions basically. And
he has a boss.
He sure does. And I think one thing that we find out throughout the movie is it's not just his. Not just being torn in two directions, he's also being torn in a personal direction, where we get introduced to his kid and we get just a peek into his personal life, and it's not good. It's not good.
Just a small peek.
It's a tiny little peek.
Just a couple scenes.
Right. And I think that rings so true to me. It's like, people you work with, you don't know what happens when they go home. Sometimes you hear about it, but you never know. So I really like the way that they played that as well. So Willem was amazing. I think if anyone's going to get nominated, he deserved it the most. His performance was just incredible, man. So inspiring. But yeah, there's so many great moments in this movie. Like, that's really what I loved about it. There's these little moments, like you said. The condos going on fire is a great scene. There's a scene where an old pervert comes and talks to the kids, and that might be Willem's best scene in the entire movie.
It's his Oscar reel scene. If he gets nominated, that's the scene they show him.
I think it is. He's so great in that little scene. So this is a movie. I mean, it looks sad. If you watch the trailer, it seems pretty bleak. But I think it is worth your time. It is. It was probably the most moving, dramatic film that I saw this year.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's just an incredible movie.
It is. Just one more note on Willem Dafoe's performance, and this is why I think it's so worthy of recognition, is that it's not a flashy role.
No.
I actually think, and the other roles, especially about the mother and the daughter, Brooklyn Prince, is that right?
Brooklyn Prince, Mooney, yeah.
They're incredible. They do have a little bit more, to work with in terms of, they can be a little more showy in what they're doing.
Yeah.
But Willem Dafoe, who we've seen him showy in, as the Green Goblin and Spider-Man, we've seen him do that. He actually has to be pretty subdued and really act a lot more with his eyes and his face. And he kind of has that weathered look of a guy that you could see in this job.
Very Florida. You know? He's very Florida.
Very Florida. Like this tan leather skin, leathery skin, you know, that's just kind of, he's just, you know, but it's just these little moments where I look at this thinking, wow, I didn't know Willem Dafoe could be this good. It's not a theatrical performance at all. It's a very natural performance. Which I think is also the case for Mooney and her mother, but I also think that those two people weren't classically trained actors, right? Those are people, you know, that credit to Sean Baker, the director. He casts incredible people, even the pervert that he casts. You know, just that type of character that, and the way it was acted, it was just on the money.
Yeah,
and it was just, you can't. It has this almost docu feel to it in a way because it feels so real.
Yeah, so that's the other credit to him. When you cast a movie like that and everything feels so natural and real, it's important to get people that can perform, not just look the part, right? And so he found someone in the Haley character, which is the mother of Mooney. He found this girl on Instagram, and he literally direct messenger through Instagram to cast her in the movie. And she's great. She's
incredible.
She nails the part as this 20-something single mother.
They gave her 3 weeks of acting training, and then she was on. They're filming, and that was it.
So yeah, that's just natural talent. She's so good. She's so talented, and you believe her in the role. So
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, great performances all around.
And I guess lastly, then, what your thoughts on the final shot of the film?
Yeah, the final shot is. I mean, we won't say what it is, but like if you read any review, there's a lot of critical discussion about the final shot. I will say that, you know, I understand what they're trying to do, and maybe they didn't pull it off perfectly, but it's not that bad. I don't have a big complaint about the final shot.
It didn't like ruin it for you.
No, and I've heard people that have said the final shot ruins it for me, and I don't understand that whatsoever. I think it's just fine.
So we certainly won't say what the shot is, what they're doing. I think it's safe. I think we can say that the final shot is shot on iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's part of why I think it's probably good for people to know that before they see it, so they understand when it transitions from the normal film to the shot from the iPhone, it feels very jarring, which is probably my biggest criticism, is that transition from an emotional moment right at the end into the final scene shot on an iPhone. But the actual scene itself, I really like conceptually. I actually like the idea of what they're doing.
Totally, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it.
Totally does. It totally makes sense, and I really, really like that. I think that that idea in the writer's room, like on the drawing board, makes sense. I just wish it wasn't shot on an iPhone. I get it.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, it's like if you think about it after the fact, it does make sense. And like you talked about, the leading up to that final scene is the most emotionally powerful sequence of the entire movie. So. Butting those two things up together maybe wasn't the best idea, but it still works for me. I don't have a problem with it really. So
I mean, it's his ending, you know, it's what he wanted to do, and he went for it, you know, and I do think the execution fell a little short, but I like to see big swings like that, so I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, he definitely swung for the fences. So, but the whole movie does. I think the whole movie does. The whole movie. You want to talk about taking chances? I don't know that any dramatic film took as many chances as this one did.
It's true because it is thin on hard plot, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's
very thin.
You're kind of experiencing this movie.
Yeah, I mean, if you boil it down, it's basically the day in the life of a hotel, a motel. Yeah. So that's what it boils down to. But it works. I mean, it works beautifully. It's an amazing movie. I recommend this movie to anybody that likes film.
Absolutely.
So,
The Florida Project.
The Florida Project.
Do you know why it's called The Florida Project?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, so I was wondering if there's a story behind it. So that was the code name for the construction of the Walt Disney Resort in Orlando when it was being built. Wow. They called it The Florida Project.
The Florida Project. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't think it's streaming, but so yeah, if it's in a movie theater near you, go out and see it. You will absolutely be entertained. You'll be transfixed. I think
and if any of you happen to be members of the Academy and you get screeners, please watch the screener.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty good too.
No other way to access screeners online, by the way. No other way.
No, it's absolutely impossible. Don't even try searching for it because you cannot find that.
Yeah.
So
yes, because our screener was sent to us from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Yes.
We'd share it, but it's watermarked with the Brave Little Podcast identifier.
I mean, we'd all go to jail. So
yeah, no one wants that. But anyway,
unless we're going into the work, and then I definitely want that because I feel like wrestling with 11 men. So
I'll go be the civilian in that program. So there you have it. Go see The Work. Go see Good Time. Go see The Florida Project. It's an embarrassment of riches here at right at the end of 2017. Yes. We got a lot of great films, and we may or may not be talking about some of those films on our next episode when we do our top 10 films of 2017. So look out for that. Anything else, Aaron?
No, that'll do it for me.
All right, that's it. As we say, hold on to your butts.